Welcome to Wadsworth History on Film, a program presented by the Wadsworth Area Historical Society and designed to record the oral history of Wadsworth for posterity. I'm Caesar Carino, your host, and today we have as a guest John Fillipi. Now, John Fillipi was on several years ago when we interviewed him for the South End, and I've asked him to come back because he has such a wealth of knowledge, not only about the South End of Wadsworth, but also about the mines in Wadsworth. Now, everyone knows that the entire city of Wadsworth is under mines somewhere or another, or almost all of it is. And John is one of the few people, because he's what, John, how old are you now, 80?
86.
86 years old. John's 86 years old and soon to be 87, I believe.
April,
he'll be 87 years of age. And he remembers these mines. I remember them as well because we lived in the mining area, but John actually hauled coal from the mines, and he can probably tell us some stories. John, before we start about the mines, how about telling us a little bit about John Fillipi, because as I say, it's been a few years since you've been on the program, and where you were born, your brothers, your sisters. Of course, I think you're the only one left in the entire
Yes.
Fillipi family, and you've been here for probably very close to 100 years, haven't you, your family?
yes.
So let's hear a little bit about that, where they came. Let's start with Nick, your father.
Well, my dad was a fisherman. They called him Fisherman Nick. And he used to make live nets and landing nets with twine, fisherman's twine. And he enjoyed that very much. And he worked for a match company for a number of years.
He actually, I can still remember his making those lines down there right on State Street as you turn the
Yes.
corner from Main Street on the right-hand side there.
Yeah.
2 or 3 houses down. How many houses down?
Oh, it was about 4 houses.
4 houses down.
5 houses.
5 houses down. He would be out there. And he was very, very old at the time. He probably was in his 80s at that time.
No, Dad wasn't that old when he
Wasn't he?
passed. No, he was only 73 when he passed
Oh,
away.
73, okay. Well,
Yeah.
but of course, to a young man, that was very old.
Yeah.
That's been about 60 years ago, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 60 years ago. He would be making nets, and his hands were gnarled. You wouldn't think he would be able to make those knots, but oh my, he did a beautiful job. Okay, then from Nick, your mother, where was your dad born?
He was born in Austria-Hungary.
Austria-Hungary. And your mother?
And my mother was from Austria-Hungary, too.
And they came over here, and then they settled in
Yes.
Wadsworth.
Well, they met here in Barberton.
On Barberton.
Yeah, before they come to Wadsworth.
Then they settled here.
Yes.
And where did you live there in Wadsworth?
At 166 State Street.
Right around the corner from, what was right next door to you? What kinds of things were right next door to you at the time?
Well, there was a house to the east, or to the west of us, which is tore down, and ours is tore down. And then there was the duplex house there where we called him Daddy Schaefer. He was no relative of ours, but everybody called him Daddy Schaefer when we were kids. And everybody enjoyed his smoking a cigar. I can never forget that. He used to take and get it clear down, and then he'd take a bobby pin and hold it till he got down to the last.
Nothing. That's how he making sure they got all of it.
He got all of it.
And then the store right next door, east of that, was the drugstore.
Yeah, east of that was DH&L.
Oh, east. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, DH&L was next, and then up on the corner was there was Freeman's drugstore in there, and there was a hardware store in there. I don't know what all kinds of grocery store was in there.
Heiberger's grocery store.
Yeah.
And we had Leah Heiberger on the program earlier, and she told us all about the store.
Yeah.
And then, of course, across the street from where you lived, which is now the hometown market, there wasn't.
No, that was Dutt. Lived on a corner there, and that where the parking lot is of the grocery store. And he used to have a dry goods store, and next to him was a grocery store that was up towards the railroad tracks
Fenton's.
there. Yeah,
Fenton's
Fenton and
grocery
Leatherman.
store.
Yeah,
Leatherman, you're right. Mhm.
and then down from that was the DH&L. They had a yard where they had all kinds of tile and bricks and whatever, sand and all that, and so all of that was there. And of course, used to be a lot of farmers come in with their horse and buggies. And
You remember that?
oh yes, I remember that real well, because our road at that time there was no concrete or anything on the road. It was just a dirt road. And right across the street from us, coming down from L Street, there's always a puddle in there, and that's where they get stuck. And we'd have to help push the cars out of the ditch and the wagons and stuff.
That was the road to Rittman,
Yeah,
and which is now called State Street. Of course, it's concrete now, or macadamized
Yeah.
and all of that. John, tell us a little bit about brothers and sisters before we go on to the mines in Wadsworth. And
well, I had two sisters, and my brother, who passed away here about 7 years ago.
Lewis. Mhm.
And then his wife passed away about 3 years ago. And then my youngest sister, she passed away when she was in Doylestown. And
How about giving names to these people so we have that for posterity?
well, Margaret was my oldest sister.
Born what year?
1911, I think it was.
1911, so
Yeah.
she'd be 93 years old
Yeah,
now.
and Mary was in 1913. And then my one brother that passed away during the flu season,
In 1918.
1918, he was just a youngster, only about 18 months old.
And his name was what?
You're going to catch me right now. Stevie.
Stephen, okay.
Stevie. And then I came along in 1918, and my brother was born in 1921.
So you got them all there.
I got them all.
That's right. Now, your own children, and then we'll go to the mines. Your own family.
Oh,
Your
well, I've got two sons, Mike. Well, I had three sons, I'm sorry.
You still have three sons, one's gone, but.
Yeah. And one was Michael, and John, and Jim. And Jim works for the school, works on the buses of the school here. And so my son, the oldest son, John, he's living in the state of Washington, and he works for Boeing Aircraft. And Jim, well, you know where he works. And Mike, he passed away. He was killed in a hunting accident.
Several years ago.
Yes,
About 40 years ago, wasn't it?
about 40 years ago.
40 years ago. I remember that very, very well.
Yeah.
This was a very sad thing. John, you actually haul coal from these mines.
Yes.
Now, how on earth does a person get to haul coal? Because you had to probably shovel your own coal, didn't you?
You had to shove it off the ground into the truck, and then
then
from
on
into
from
the
the
truck,
truck down.
down in the basement.
Right. Now tell us about how that works and where you did it and how this worked with you and all of that. What was your
Well-
first job? With the hauling coal?
Well, I was working with Bowman boys. They had a trucking business, and I worked with them.
I'm glad you brought up the Bowman boys. That has not come up in the program yet, and yet they were very active in the Wadsworth area for many, many
yes.
years. Tell us about the Bowman boys, where they were located, what kinds of trucks they had, and what they did, and so forth.
Well, the Bowman boys lived on Mill Road. That was
Now-
back in my home.
Let's make sure that we know where Mill Road is, because
Mill
there are
Road
three of
goes-
them in Wadsworth. There's Mill Street, Mill Road, and then there's one out there.
Mill Road, we went from the match company down through their yard, and it was all fenced off, and then it just dead-ended where they couldn't get through. But then from the other end of the fence down through and went up onto State Street then. And State Street only went as far as the railroad tracks, and from there, Mill Road went all the way down to Rittman. That was called Mill Road. So after they built or put the new concrete and everything in the street, why, they made it one name, and that was called State Street.
Now, I want to make sure that we have something straight here, because I'm positive that even though it's at the present time, it is somewhat confusing, it's going to be even more confusing for generations to come. Mill Road, as we call it right there, was a little bit of a street by the match shop. Mill Street was in the center of town, and
Yes.
that was named after the Mills family.
Yeah,
That not the Afro-American Mills family that lived there, but the Mills family, of whom 2 or 3 of the children would be Lewis Mills and Eunice Mills Hollinger. The mill that was named there, and then Mill Road, which is out by the end of Broad Street, almost to the city limits. That Mill Road
yeah,
was for Elton Mills, from whose farm the allotment was made. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yeah.
So we have 3 Mills Road in Wadsworth, and it's very confusing. And one of these days, people are going to say, I wonder what happened, and perhaps this will help to clarify that. And the Bowman Brothers company was where, John?
well, they had it right from the house there.
Which is what was where, though?
That was on Mill Road.
On Mill Road, but I mean, tell us exactly. I mean, there were some houses on Mill Road, but
There was only 3 houses.
3 houses,
Yeah.
okay. And which one of the houses was theirs?
They was in the big house that was duplex.
Okay, the big duplex.
Yes.
And they lived there with whom? Do you remember?
Well, their mother and the whole family lived there
Right.
at one time.
But the 2 families lived in the duplex, right?
Yeah, well, there was one family on one side. Gosh, I can't think of what their name is.
Well, if it comes to you, we'll get that. But then they lived right there, and they had what kind of trucks? What? Now this is we're not
Well,
talking
they had a
about
dump truck.
what
and they-
year?
Oh, gosh, I can't tell you what year it was.
But it was in the 30s, was it not?
Yeah. It was about 35, 36, something
So
like that.
it had to be before that.
Yeah. And then they had a flatbed truck that had done a lot of moving, people moving out of town and stuff like that. They hauled their furniture. And then if they had bricks or something to haul, well, they hauled them with that flatbed truck. And the dump truck, they used to haul the coal in.
Now, when we're talking about dump trucks, we're not talking about the great big dump trucks that you can see now with
Oh,
that are a mile long.
No, this is just well, I think, what'd they call them, 5-ton or?
5-ton dump truck. Mhm.
Dump trucks at that time.
And you drove one of those dump trucks, right?
No, I didn't drive it. They drove.
They drove the
Yeah,
the
I worked
trucks.
with the boys.
And tell us where you would go.
Well, we go down we'd start either at Hartman or at, no, not Hartman. What's that one that you said?
Silver Creek.
Silver Creek.
Silver Creek. Number 3 mine, the
Yeah.
Hutchison.
Hutchison Mine. We'd go there sometimes and get a load. Then we'd go down to Lozier's Mine.
And tell us where the Lozier's mine
Lozier
was.
Mine is on Johnson Road, down at the bottom of the hill there past the furniture place.
Right. It's south of the old Hutchison mine.
Yeah,
Right. But it's on Silver Creek, actually.
yes.
It follows Silver Creek. The vein follows
Yeah,
Silver Creek.
Silver Creek
And
goes
the
down
Lozier
to-
mine, George Lozier was the
Yeah.
person. And tell us a little bit about George and Liz Lozier. Can you tell us?
Well, their house was sitting right up above the mine.
Right above the mine.
And, well, there's a house sitting down in the driveway now where the mine, we used to go down to get the coal. And there was a lot of people working in that mine. I can't think of their names anymore. I used to know a lot of them, but
Of course, they're all dead by now
yeah, I imagine they are.
because they.
Because they were pretty old at the time
At the
when
time,
I was.
that's right. The George Lozier was a kind of an anomaly because almost all of the other miners were Irish,
Yeah.
and George was a good old German fellow.
Yeah.
And
Then if we didn't go to Lozier's mine, we went to Brogan's mine.
now tell us where Brogan's mine was from Lozier's mine.
It's off of Medina
Medina
Line
Line
Road. And it was just a driveway that went back to it, and it was down below Johnson Road. And they'd done a lot of coal mining there. They'd done quite a bit of it, because we hauled a lot of coal out of there. And so those were the mines that was the biggest part of where we hauled from.
Now, where did you take the coal once you got it on your truck?
Well, the people in town,
In other words, you would deliver the coal to people.
Yeah.
And we're talking 1 or 2 or 3 tons.
That's a lump coal we was hauling to the people. And then we had the nut and slack. A lot of times we'd haul it to match company.
Okay, now tell us what nut and slack is.
Nut and slack is a little pieces of coal about the size of a walnut, and the slack is real fine stuff. And that's what they call nut and slack.
Now, how did it become, they didn't have a little hammer there to chop it up. How did we get the nut and slack?
Well, the nut and slack, they go over a screen when they dumped them out of the coal cars up on the tipple. They had a tipple and they dumped it down, and there was a screen in there like that left that go. Whatever went through that screen, that was a nut and slack.
Right. Now, you actually watched them bring the coal from out of the mine, right?
Yeah.
And you said that they brought it out in a little cart.
Yeah.
What pulled that cart?
Well, some of the places they had a mule.
Mule.
Other places, no, I think Lozier didn't have a mule. They had a big motor like that they hooked onto it and pulled it out.
A crane or a
Hoist like.
Hoist, right,
Yeah.
right. Now, as a matter of fact, the last mine in Wadsworth was the number 3 mine, or the Hutchison-Mullaney mine,
Yeah.
which was down there in Silver Creek, right on Silver Creek, east of Silver Creek Road. By coincidence, I happened to be there the day that they closed that mine. My father and I had gone down there for what reason? Because John Mullaney was our next door neighbor. And the reason that they closed the mine is that the mule drowned, and that was the last straw.
Oh.
The mule drowned, that was the last straw. Tell us where you would take the coal. I know you say you take it to places, people's houses and things like that, but do you remember how much you charged for a ton of coal?
Yeah, at that time, I think a ton of coal, Ohio coal, was about $4 a ton.
$4 a ton. You could get it for $3 a ton, but it was not the best. It had
not the best coal.
Not the best coal, but $4 a ton. And how many tons would people usually put in? People just have no idea what coal is like.
Well, we used to put coal in people's basement during the summer months, and they would fill their coal cellars clear up to as high as you could pour. Well, one of us would be on the truck, the other one would be down the cellar shoveling it back.
So that you put more into it?
More in there.
Okay, now tell us what a coal cellar is. I suspect that anyone who is less than 50 or 60 years old has never seen a coal cellar unless they actually walk into one.
They built a partition in there big enough so that they could put the coal in, and they would have it piled up so high that you could take the coal out of there without it all coming down on you.
Now, coal we know is dirty.
Yeah.
What did you look like at the end of the day?
Well, I think we looked like a coal miner.
Like a coal miner, because that dust was absolutely, particularly if you're perspiring a little bit.
Oh, you looked like a streaking man then.
That's right. That was very, very bad. Now, tell us a little bit about and this is going to be kind of a strange question, the socialization process that you found when you went to the mines. Typically, if you go to a store right now, people come up to you and they'll say, well, may I help you, or have a nice day, and so forth and so on. Coal miners are a little bit different. Describe coal miners.
Well, when you went to a coal mine, if you had to wait in line, if there was other trucks ahead of you, you had to wait in line to get to the coal you wanted. And you'd have to tell them what you wanted, whether you wanted lump coal or you wanted slack coal or whatever it was. And that's what you would get. And then you would have to pull up on the scale before you go to the mine, and they'd weigh your truck. And then when you went to get the load, they would weigh your truck and the coal, and that's what you paid for.
Right, and you had to pay for it right then and
yes.
there.
Yes.
Credit card?
Oh, no credit card.
How'd you pay?
By cash.
And did you get a receipt for it?
Oh, yeah, you had always a receipt, yeah.
Always had a receipt.
Because when you took it to the people, you give them the receipt that you
That's
paid
right.
that much for the coal.
And but you got a little bit of money for
Yeah.
having delivered it, right?
For delivery, they had.
And what, just out of curiosity, I think this is going to be a real shock. How much money did you get for delivering 3 tons of coal?
Well, they wouldn't get very very big, much, about, they probably get them maybe about $5 or $6.
That's for the entire crew, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have two people, one driving the truck and one helping and then you had to load the truck. And coal is very difficult to load because it's all different sizes, right? You have a big coal shovel, right?
Number 10 scoop shovel.
Number 10 scoop shovel. You put that underneath some coal and you try to lift it. How much do you think that, can you imagine, can you guess how much a number 10 scoop of coal weighed?
Well, I would say some of it would vary, probably 15, 20 pounds at a time.
Oh, more than that, wouldn't it? You get a good lump of coal and really 15 pounds by itself.
Yeah, well, it might be 20, 25 pounds.
25 pounds. Now, how long would it take you to load that truck?
It would take you a good part of 2 hours, or an
load-
hour and a half
To load the truck.
to load the
Okay.
truck.
Now, we have two people. We're loading the truck, take you about, let's say, for instance, an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Then you take it to the place and you unload it. And how long does it take to unload?
Well, it wouldn't be so much unloading because
But
you
you-
had somebody running it down the chute, and it didn't take too long unloading it.
About a half hour.
Yeah,
So you have about 2 hours altogether in there,
Yeah.
right? So the two of you together are making $4 to $5 for 2 hours of work. And you had to provide the truck, you had to provide the gasoline,
Yeah,
and you had to provide the time and the effort. And you got $4.
yep. Well, we thought we was getting big money.
Oh, you bet you were getting big money in those days, that's right. Let's walk away from coal for just a quarter of a second, and let me ask you some questions about the South End, because you are probably one of the oldest residents of the South End, still living, obviously. When State Street went from Main Street to Mill Road,
Yeah.
describe...
That was Dutt Street.
That was okay, that's what I wanted you to hear. I wanted to hear
Yeah, it
you
was
say.
Dutt Street from there, but then when they put the new road, they made it all State Street.
Okay, Dutt Street. Now, what was the significance of Dutt?
Dutt, there, the house that was on the corner there of Main and Dutt Street was Mr. Dutt.
And then, how does that relate to DH&L?
Well, DH&L didn't have any didn't own any of that property.
They didn't. However, Dutt, many, many years before that, I believe,
Yeah.
owned the mill there.
Yeah,
That's right. So Dutt was kind of a strong person.
yeah,
I've been trying to get the Dutt family, and there are still, I was going to say remnants, that's a bad word, but there are still some people who are related to those
Family?
Dutts. Yep. They're obviously great-grandchildren, grandchildren, and so forth, but I'm going to try to I've been trying to get them on the program for quite some time. Incidentally, as we are talking here today, I need to say that it takes 10 times longer to get someone to come onto the program. I've been trying to get John on the program to tell us about the coal for about 2 years now, than it is to actually interview them. And I think that after you're once interviewed, I just want to make sure that the people know. Are you the least bit nervous at the present time, John?
No.
No, of course not, because you don't even know you're on television.
heck no.
And it would be so much easier if I could just make a phone call and would you be interviewed for Wadsworth History on Film? But it takes hours and days and days and days, and that's one of the reasons we have to spend so much time at it. But let's go back to the Dutts there, and it was Dutt Road. Then.
Yes.
This would have been probably in 2, 3, 4?
Yeah, somewhere in
Somewhere
there.
in 2 to 34. They opened that and they made the road go all the way to Rittman. It was all the way to Rittman because
Yes.
at that time,
And Mill Road.
Yeah.
See, all the way, that was Mill
was
Road.
Mill Road.
Where the railroad tracks from there on down was all,
but what was the condition of the road? What was the nature of the road?
oh, it was a mud hole all the way down through there.
Okay, now you obviously, when you were a kid, walked down through there because there was a lot of fishing or a lot of hunting and so forth on those farms.
Oh,
Who were
yes.
some of those old farmers who were down there? I'll give you one name, the Pecknick family, all the way
Well,
down.
let's see.
Shockies.
There was Segas,
Segas.
Dombrowski's, down around there.
Dombrowski's actually on
Yeah.
Seville Road.
And the Poters used to
Poters, right. Mhm.
live down right there along the creek.
Now, when you talk about the creek, there are two of them. Which one are you talking about?
The one that comes from Wadsworth down through.
But what's the name of that one?
I don't know. I've never heard a name for it.
Well, there is a name for it.
Is there?
Yep, and it's on the city map now, and we made sure that that got on the city map. I mean, I didn't particularly, but it was researched. And it was Mill Creek.
Well, I know there used to be a mill
Yeah.
right there where Mill Road used to come. There used to be a mill
That's
there.
right, that's right. What kind of mill was it? Do you remember that?
Flour
A
mill.
flour mill.
Yeah.
And who owned that? Do you remember?
I don't know.
But you remember the flour mill.
Oh, I remember of it, but
it.
I never seen a flour mill.
Or you did not see the flour mill
No.
because it was gone before then. Go on down there, Poters, and then go around the big bend, and then go down into, say, for instance, south of Seville Road. Can you remember, did you ever walk that far?
Yep.
And tell us what you remember about that area.
Well, when you got down around there, the water would go down into the Holmesbrook Creek.
Holmesbrook Creek,
And then from the Holmesbrook Creek, it went down to River Styx
River
Creek.
Styx Creek, that's right.
And that went on down into Rittman then.
Into Rittman, that's right, into Tinker's
And the
Creek.
river, and then down at Rittman, it would go into Chippewa Creek.
Right. Now, at the present time, if you remember where the Redbird was and where the Eagles is
Yes.
right now, what was there?
What was there? Well, at the Redbird, there was a Redbird food liner
Now,
there.
this is long before that, in the 30s, 20s and 30s, when you were growing up. What was there?
There was no building there.
Nothing.
No,
Zero.
zero.
Did anyone farm it?
Yes, I think it was farmed at that time,
And
but
do you
I
remember
don't.
who farmed
No,
it?
I don't remember who
No.
farmed it.
We have been trying to determine, and if anyone knows, we would certainly love to have that. We would like to know the name of the person who actually farmed the area that is presently the Eagles' property. Now, not necessarily just the Eagles' property, but from that whole area all the way down to Pfeiffer Road,
Yeah.
which is the next road south there. That was one big farm. And we would like to know that. We don't have that. We have some historical documentation, but it's confusing because it goes back and forth between this
Yeah.
owner and that owner, and we don't think that the person who owned the land farmed the land. But if anyone knows that, we would like to have you tell us that. As a matter of fact, anything that we have here on the Wadsworth History on Film is open to your suggestions, because what we're trying to do is to compile the accuracy
Yeah.
of this thing. Now, as you would quote, play down there as young kids, so you were born in 1918, so you were about 10 years old in 1928. In the 20s, the cars began to become just a little bit more popular and so forth.
Yeah, well, the old Model A's and Model T's used to come up the street there.
They used to come up the street.
And them was the ones that get stuck in the whole mud hole.
They would get stuck in the mud hole because there was no
Yeah.
drainage there. Let's go back to the coal mines for a second. Now, did you ever haul any coal from places other than the Brogan, Lozier, and Hutchison Mulaney mines?
Yes.
Okay, where were they?
We hauled coal from the old Williams mine.
Well, Elt Mills old.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right there by Chevy Garage.
Right, sure, but on
Just
the other
past-
side.
Yeah, past the Chevy Garage.
As a matter of fact, the Williams mine, which started there, actually went all the way down to the Hutchison Mulaney mine. I mean, they were some way connected there.
Yeah.
And Elt Mills. Now, you say where the Chevy Garage is. Is it not on the other side of the road?
Yeah, it went clear across up into, almost up to 261.
Right. Mhm. It went all the way up there.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it went all the way up there.
Yeah.
Tell us now, from time to time, we would see great big slag piles. What's a
There's-
slag pile and how'd they get there?
The slag pile was what they called a gob pile.
The gob pile.
And that was stuff that would fall down in the mines over their rails, and they'd have to clean it up, and that's how they'd bring it out and dump it out on the
Why did they pile up? Why didn't they burn it?
We couldn't be burned.
Could be burned because it was
It was just slag. I
slag.
mean, well, it was stone and everything else.
Right.
And if it'd fall down, why, they'd have to get it off of their tracks so that they could bring the coal out.
There was a slag pile between the railroad tracks and the old streetcar track on the east side of Silver Creek Road for many, many years. Of course,
Yeah.
Ohio Edison bought that. They leveled that off. There were also slag piles. Did you ever haul any coal from way down by Medina County Line Road?
No, I didn't.
No, but they have slag piles there. Some of them are still
Yeah.
there. Now, you went to the Williams mine, which of course was on the Elk Mills farm.
Yeah.
Elk Mills farm. Tell us a little bit about the Williams mine, how it differed from the Hutchison, Lozier, and Brogan
Well,
mines.
the Williams mine, they had 6 foot of coal in there.
That's right. And what about the ones down in the southern part?
Well, Hutchison's only had 18 inches of coal.
18 inches of coal. Is that
And
better than the coal?
Brogan and Lozier's, theirs was, I imagine, some 4 foot high or something like that.
I think that's right. There was just a very
Yeah.
shallow, now, mines. We think of mines as going down into the ground and so forth.
Yeah.
Tell us how these mines were made. And
Well, Lozier's mine was in the bank. They
call
call
them
it a bank mine.
bank mine because you started
The
out
slope.
on a slope and you
Yeah.
would go down. And what about the Brogan
And
mine?
Brogan mine was a shaft mine.
And tell us how those differ.
Well, the shaft mine, they had a
Elevator.
that took them down into the mine or brought the coal out of the mine.
Now, that elevator, was it hydraulic?
Oh, yeah, hydraulic. Steam fired, they had steam fired engines that they'd haul it up and down with.
How big were the, quote, elevators, if you want to call them that?
Some of them were, I imagine it was about 6 by 8 or something like
In
that.
other words, they were not too big.
No,
Not too big at all, because they would have to haul thousands of pounds
oh, yeah.
of that up there. Now, they went down to the mine. We talk about mines sometimes being 100 feet, 200 feet. How deep was this Brogan mine?
That I don't remember.
Not very deep.
No, it wasn't too deep, but they had a lot of water.
Hey, you bet they had a lot of
And
water.
they had to pump a lot of water all the time out of the mine.
That's right, exactly. They would bring the coal up and then describe how you would get the coal out of the elevator, the box, and what the miners would be doing while you were doing that.
Well, the miners would be down there digging coal,
More coal.
more coal.
More coal, yeah.
And they would have another cart down there to fill up. And then when they bring the full one up, and they dump it out at the top of the tipple.
Now, they dumped this, you didn't have to shovel out of that one, did you?
No.
Now, how do they, you're talking about a tipple. You and I both understand tipples because we lived in that area for,
Yeah.
well, I was born there, and so you were almost born there. Explain what a tipple is and how it works, and what
Well,
was the
it's-
last one you saw, and I'll tell you when the last one I saw.
Well, the Brogans, they had brought up the cars out of the tipple, and they brought it out on a rail to go over, and then at the end of the rail, they had it blocked off so that when they dumped the coal out of the car, they opened the door on the car, and it slid out of the car onto the chute going down to where the coal would be in the tipple.
Now, tell us how big a tipple would be.
Oh, a tipple would be pretty good size.
It would hold probably several hundred tons.
Yeah.
And what was it made of?
Out of logs,
Logs, very,
Yeah.
very big, heavy
big
logs.
logs,
Big
heavy logs, yeah.
Because it had to withstand all of the
The
internal
weight,
pressure
yeah.
of that, and the weight of that coal. Now, they put this coal in there, and why did they put it in a tipple? Why didn't they just throw it onto the ground?
well, when they put it down the tipple, that was sorted out, sort the coal different sizes out. And that's where they got the different sizes of coal.
How did they sort it, do you remember?
Well, it come down across the screen like, and then whatever fell through the screen went down farther. Till they got to 2 or 3 different kinds of coal out of it.
When you say screen, I picture, a mesh screen.
This is steel.
Steel.
Steel bars in there, and we're run over it Whatever fell down through that went in that other bin.
What if something got stuck? I mean, did they have some automatic equipment to kind of shake it?
Yeah, they went down there. They had to crawl down there.
They had to crawl down there
Yeah.
with great big long steel bars and push it around, and sometimes they would, well, not fall into it, but it would be very dangerous,
Yeah.
kind of a dangerous thing to do. We talked about the socialization process in the mines. Coal miners, hard workers,
Oh, yeah.
very, very strong people,
Yeah.
very strong people. I mean, they had, I can still remember some of their arms, honest to heavens, were as big as a
Oh,
person's leg.
they were big men,
They're
I'll tell
big
you.
men, and not what you call pansies.
No, you couldn't be no pansies there.
They were very, very strong. Sociable?
Oh, yeah, they were sociable, all right. Yeah, I mean, they talked to us. We talked to them a lot, especially if we got down there before they went into the mines, see.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you go early in the morning and maybe wait half an hour, 2 hours maybe for a load of coal.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to factor that into, the amount of time that you got your $2 or $4 or
Yeah.
whatever it was, because sometimes you would work a half a day for $2.
Well, that's just like we used to go down to number 9 mine down by Clinton. And we'd sometimes go at 3 o'clock in the morning, wait for a load of coal, and maybe get out of there at 9 o'clock.
6 hours.
Yeah.
Now, why would you go all the way to Clinton for coal?
Well, that was number 9 mine, was just like Kentucky Block.
I was going to say that there was a different
It was
caliber,
hard. It was hard coal.
anthracite coal
Yeah.
as compared to our bituminous coal up here.
And then there was another coal mine there close by, that high heat coal, and that was real hot burning coal. I mean, you needed fire in a hurry. That was it.
Now, what was the composition of what they call the high heat coal? I remember the high heat coal, but what was the composition of it?
Well, it burnt faster.
It was what,
Yeah.
harder?
No. It was softer coal.
Softer coal, right.
Yeah.
The composition of the high heat coal is very, very soft.
Yeah.
But what was the downside of it, though?
Well, it wouldn't make much ash.
That-
It would burn up real fine.
because it was kind of powdery.
Yeah.
I want to come back to this in a second to get some more information about it, but I'm also curious about something else in the city of Wadsworth when you were growing up. Main Street at that time stopped pretty well at the railroad track. Is that correct? In terms of a paved street.
No, it went clear down to Seville Road. Just before you got to Seville Road.
That's right, John. You're right. That's right. They had it paved all the way to Seville Road.
Yeah,
Describe it from Seville Road south.
that was all dirt road.
Dirt, completely dirt. As a matter of fact,
Well, there was a lot of the roads that we went on, even to get coal down by Clinton and that. It was all mud.
all mud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember when they put brick on Main Street?
Not on Main Street, I don't, but
Where-
I know when they done State Street.
And you remember they're putting brick there.
Oh, yes, we played with them bricks down there.
You played with the bricks, yeah.
They had rollers. See, they put the bricks up on a high side on along
Sidewalk,
on the other side of the sidewalk. They had stacked them up there, see?
the Devil Strip.
Yeah, on the other side of the Devil Strip. Then they had these rollers that they would feed the bricks down to the fellas that were laying them in the street. And at night when they go home, we'd get boards and sit on them rollers or slide down with them.
Evidently, human nature is always and everywhere the same. I mean, the kids do whatever they want to do
Oh, yeah.
when the workers go home. Can you describe how they laid the brick and who laid the brick and what the whole process looked like to you?
Well, I'll tell you, first they put down concrete. There was 6 inches of concrete on State Street. Then they come down and they put sand down on top of the concrete. And then they had these fellows laying the bricks. And then after the bricks were all set in, then they would pour tar over it. so it'd go down between the bricks.
And it was a mess.
It was a mess.
How long did it take for the tar to wear off so that you saw only the bricks on top?
Oh, not too long. But
It wasn't really tar though, was it?
yes,
Really tar?
it was tar.
I thought they had a different composition that.
No, it was tar. It come in drums, or well, it was not in a drum, but it was like in a pipe, but it was just tin, and they would cut it with an axe and cut a hole and spread the tin out, and then they take the chunk and put it in the heater where they heat the tar to make it hot, and then they'd put it down on the street.
Then they put it on the street.
Yeah.
And after it was put on the street for a while, you couldn't walk on it or anything of that nature.
Oh
could
no,
you?
they put sand on top of it.
But you still couldn't walk on it.
Yeah.
Because it'd be on the bottom of your
stick
feet.
to you on your feet.
Then the other part of human nature, your mother would give you a good going over for bringing you into the house.
Yeah.
John, when the other thing that I wanted to ask in the 20s particularly, we talked about the cars that would go through there. Wadsworth didn't have too many cars in 1920, 25.
No, there wasn't too many cars,
Not
no.
too many cars. Now, do you remember the first car that you ever rode in as a youngster, and where did you ride, and what was your feeling for it? People would never be able to understand and believe how thrilling it was to have your first car ride.
Well, years ago, we had a boarder, and he bought a car, and we went to was going to Chippewa Lake. So we went to Mennonite Hill. Well,
You mean Acme Hill?
No, Mennonite Hill.
You went to Mennonite Hill? Oh, you went up Seville
old
Road.
road, yeah.
Okay, all right.
So we was going to Chippewa Lake there. Well, you got up so far, and if anybody lived on Mennonite Hill, there was a place where they could turn around. And the cars would go up so far, and they couldn't get enough power, so they'd go in there, and then they'd back up the rest of the way to the hill.
I can still remember, and I have no idea, unless the reverse gear was a lower ratio.
Lower ratio.
But I can still remember cars going up Silver Creek Hill, just short distance from where I live right now.
Yeah.
And actually turning around on the road and backing up because they did not have enough power to go up there. Was that the first car ride?
Yeah.
That was your first car ride. And do you remember what kind of car it was?
Model T.
Model T.
Touring car.
Touring car. And what was your what did you think of? What did you feel?
Well, you wondered, gosh, are we going to get there anytime, you know?
It didn't go too terribly fast, did it?
Oh, no. They don't go that fast.
I would imagine at the top, maybe 20 miles an hour?
About 20
miles an hour.
Of course, that'd be on level ground, but not up a hill.
Up a hill. And they would have, there were, of course, no gear shifts in them. They had the 3 pedals on the floor.
3 pedals on the floor.
Describe those 3 pedals on the floor, and what would they do?
Well, the 3 pedals on the floor, one was your brake, the other was your setting a different gear.
And then your reverse by pushing them both in.
Yeah.
You'd have to have some pretty agile feet.
Oh, yeah.
Because actually they were not very close.
No, they weren't too far apart there, those pedals. If you get the wrong one.
You get the wrong one, you could be going in reverse in no time flat because you could hit 2 pedals at the same time. Going back to the coal mine, we have only a few minutes left, but going back to the coal mine, John, pardon me. When we took this coal, these loads of coal to the people, they would get 1 ton, let's say, and it'd be $3.
Yeah.
$3 doesn't seem like a whole lot today.
Yeah.
But everyone pay you cash?
No, some of them you have to wait till payday.
Wait till payday.
And wait till payday.
And many people would get just a little sack of coal. Did you ever have to do that?
No, we never give them sacks of coal.
But some people would get only sacks of coal because they could not afford a full ton for $3.
Yeah.
That's right. And then the sack of coal would keep them going for a little while. The one of the things that excuse me, one of the things that was a big seller for coal, and John, you can probably corroborate this information, was the fact that 1 lump of coal would last sometimes for several hours, whereas that same lump of wood would be gone in just a few minutes. So it was the length of time, and they would I'm going to use this word, bank your fires. Now tell
Yeah.
us about why they would bank their fire and what was the
reason they would,
convenience here that we're talking about.
well, the reason they bank a fire was they'd put it in there and then it wouldn't burn as fast and it would almost last all night long.
John, we have only a minute left. Can you tell us anything that you want to tell us about the coal mines and how
Well, see, there was a coal mine, remember the one up on north of Wadsworth there?
you way up the
Yeah.
Reimer Road?
Yeah. And then there was a railroad track through Durling Park that
went up
used to
there.
go up to the mines up there and take the coal. And they took the coal from there by train down to Rogues Hollow down there, and they made a whole train of coal. That's the way they hauled it out.
In 1885 to 89, somewhere in that area, the mine at Silver Creek shipped 1,100 tons of coal in one day, which broke a record. Coal actually was what Wadsworth is built upon, and right now Wadsworth is built upon those coal mines. John, we want to thank you for your time, absolutely a wealth of knowledge, and if there's anything else that you ever want to share with us on this program, we'd love to have you back because you're one of Wadsworth's oldest residents now, and you actually were in the bowels of Wadsworth and in the guts of Wadsworth doing what Wadsworth became. You worked at the mat shop, you worked at the injector, you worked in the coal mines. I mean, that was what Wadsworth is all about.
And played in the salt works.
And played in the salt works. John, thank you very much. It's been
You're
wonderful
welcome.
having had you here with us today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right.